Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. This is a trip back to the gay world of narcissism, and we have a viewer question. The viewer's name is Sociopath Survivor. First off, I'll go ahead and read the question. Thank you for this video. Would you be able to please talk about your experience with the smear campaign in another video? Also, do you find in the gay community a lot of them are these cluster B monsters? I find an awful lot of gay men remaining friends with their exes in the gay community, and it's always rubbed me the wrong way and made me suspicious. As far as my experience with the smear campaign, oh dear, I've seen a lot of it. My own experience as well as that of others. But before we go into that, for those of you out there who don't know what that is, what's a smear campaign? Well, a smear campaign is something that the cluster B monster, narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, whatever they are, it's something they do at the end of the relationship. Or in many cases, it may begin prior to the end, so they can be one up on you if you're the target. But what is this all about? Well, smear means to smear. They say smear your name, which means drag it through the dirt. It's a typical reaction when a narcissistic relationship is either about to end or nearing the point where it's about to end. Because you have to look at it this way. The narcissistic monster, remember, we've covered what this is. It's a person without any kind of conscience, without any feelings of guilt or remorse, which means it can lie to your face 24/7 for weeks, months, years, decades, and not feel a thing about it. The problem is when this relationship is coming to an end, whether it's because the target's figured out too much and is starting to pull away, or if the narcissistic monster has found a brand new, fresh source of supply that doesn't have all the problems that the current one does, that's figured out this and figured out that, it's much easier just to let that go and start fresh. Well, the problem is these monsters know that they're monsters. They know the difference between right and wrong, but they've chosen not to live their lives by that standard. If you are someone who does, you could be a potential threat to their future endeavors. So the smear campaign is what they use as a way to discredit you. And it's usually done in subtle ways. It's not like they're going to just say horrible things about you. But if they've done their narcissistic job correctly, more than likely they've been able to ensnare a few, if not a lot, of flying monkeys, which would be people that you may be close to, that they've become friends with and flattered and done their love-bombing crap on, not necessarily romantically, but complimentary, charming type behaviors to gain trust. Why do they smear? Well, because they don't want to be the bad guy or bad girl when this thing ends. And if they're on to the fact that you're onto them, they're probably already working on their smear campaign, but you usually won't know about it because they know they have a certain way of, let's say, going to some of your friends that you're close to, that you knew first, and introduced to this creature. They can be convincing with their flattery and seeing things that you may lack and then fulfilling those for the flying monkeys. And they're afraid that you might step forward and tell people exactly how evil and abusive the person is. Because remember, in these types of relationships, the people on the outside don't see what goes on. You do, because you're right there. You see the retarded things that go on that if you were to go to somebody else outside of it and say, here's what I think is going on, you would sound totally retarded, and that's planned that way, evidently. But these creatures know that when you figure them out, and if you're like I was, and I like spell it all out like I know what's going on, you did this, and oh, you've lied about A, B, C, and D. Oh my goodness, you're a fraud, or whatever I might say. Well, they can't risk that being told, so they've already worked on the other people, which common things they'll do when they get a sense that things are about to end, or they realize you know too much and you're going to be gone soon. Well, many times they will evoke sympathy, pity, outrage, and compassion from flying monkeys. Friends of yours, friends of theirs, or both. And they will tell these people just how bad you were. And many times they'll actually reverse the stories, like they're famous for. So if the person did something abusive to you, well, they'll tell the others that you did that to them. And the others many times will be silenced. I mean, these creatures have a way of subtly conveying this information, so they don't actually say, oh, he's terrible, he did this terrible thing to me. They do it in a different manner where it's not so overt, hence covert. So they may just hint, and I've mentioned in other videos, they may just say that you're becoming paranoid, which usually means you're starting to catch on to the game that's being played. But they love to hold on to their lies, so they would much rather tell you that you are imagining things, even though you found the lipstick on the collar, even though it was gone all night, even though a strange man or strange woman's been calling at all hours of the night begging for love or something, and you'll probably, oh, that person's crazy. I don't know who that is. Well, regardless, they have a way of turning people against you in subtle ways. They're hooked on supply, so they can't risk you being a whistleblower, going out in public telling everyone how horrible they were. So chances are that's been done already about you. So if you do by chance go out and start saying, oh, this person's horrible, well, so you've already been painted into a weirdo role, and when people see that, you don't realize they already have a background built up with this monster who's brainwashed them, mind-controlled them over time into thinking that you, for example, are becoming unstable. Well, then when you throw a fit, let's say, in public before it all ends, that's going to be evidence to show, see how crazy this person is? Because they have an uncanny ability to remain completely calm. They have a way of looking like nothing is wrong at all, and they're completely self-confident. And you, of course, may not be that way. I wasn't. I'd be like on the edge and, what is wrong with you? I can't believe it. And then they'd be like, see, he's crazy. And they love to use that for me. Oh, yes, that's their favorite. It's got to be the most common in the narcissistic monsters I've been involved with. They always seem to use that I'm crazy. I'm like, so you're qualified to diagnose mental illness? Hmm? And then when you look at their behaviors, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. Yes, so that's what the smear campaign is. It's designed to discredit you, so when you do realize the extent of what's really going on and things are over, you may be tempted to run out and tell people, well, you'll just usually look like a fool because they've gotten to them all first. If you saw The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, there's the scene where Peyton, the house guest, is looking at the guy who's doing the house repairs, who's kind of dense, and he sees her breastfeeding the other lady's baby secretly, which is wrong. Well, when she realizes that he saw, she says something like, my version of the story will be much better. Basically telling him to keep his mouth shut. Well, that's how these people are. Now, you have to keep in mind, too, the narcissistic monster, without their supply, they're nothing. And in many cases, with their smear campaign, they will be discrediting you, but sometimes it's to your own friends. And that can be tough, but at the same time, if they're skilled at their sickening craft, it's possible they can get away with saying outrageous things about you, or their favorite is to take something that did happen but wasn't any big deal, but make it sound like a really big deal. So then if a friend asks you, did you really do this? And they won't say all of it, and you'll be like, well, yes, I did do that. So you'll look guilty. You don't understand how that story was twisted into being some kind of horror fest, when it may just be some innocent thing that went on, so they can be twisted. But what will happen in many cases is they'll believe the creature, and the creature will tell them, oh, he's crazy, he's bipolar, and that way that'll allow the flying monkey or the brainwashed peer to think, oh, I wouldn't think that he'd be that crazy, but, oh, you put it that way, well, that makes sense then. He did admit to that one thing, so, and that's how it can be credible. They're very crafty. That's all they have going for them is their fakery. They also, these creatures, know who to press buttons on, so they know how to invoke feelings of guilt. For example, if the narcissist has become friends with a friend of yours and finally reveals just how abusive you have been, this friend of yours who's trying to be friends with the monster might feel guilty for not recognizing how this poor narcissistic monster has been suffering at the hands of you. And they may then believe anything that's said because they already feel a little bit of guilt for not recognizing this problem. So as far as my experience with the smear campaign, there are so many examples. I'll pick some of the greatest hits. One would be where I had been discarded by the long-term 11-year thing and was freshly on my own, freshly single, and actually partially happy, thinking, wow, I got out of that, and I'm still alive. And I would hang out in public and ended up finding this couple who was dating, who invited me over to their apartment after the nightclub closed, which I went thinking, oh, this is different, this is new. Well, eventually, the one I didn't know, I knew one of them but not the other. The one I didn't know was kind of like sneaking in the room and like acting flirtatious and acting like, oh, the other one might hear, oh, shh. But it would still like, whatever, be flirtatious. Because see, I had vented to these people. I had told them both what I had just gone through, saying I was just involved with this thing, and it turned out to be violent, it turned out to be this, it turned out to be lies, and all this. And they were both like, oh, no one should ever hit their partner. Oh, that should never happen to you. Well, a few days later, the stranger in the couple started to call me. It was saying stuff like, you know those stories you're telling about what happened to you? That's what my partner's doing to me. Which is mirroring, and I had no idea at the time, but it was basically claiming that all that stuff I was passionately talking about, thinking it was safe, because it wasn't like I'm on a new date with someone and say, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, my ex was evil. This happened and that. No, these were people I figured I could talk with. But then the landscape changed because this creature was saying, oh, our relationship, it's just a fraud. It's a front. It's not real. And I'd think, why? I was in a strange state, probably wanted to believe it because I did see something in this creature. But this creature started to do little fishy things like, why don't you call the apartment and leave a message and say this? So basically it would look like I was just calling for either one of them and then ended up talking to that one, which I didn't realize it was probably being set up for something evil. But anyway, I started to hang out with this person on a regular basis and was constantly told that, oh, they just live together, they're not together anymore. Time passed and secrets were revealed, and this person was considering itself to be like my casual type partner. It was no marriage, no living together, but it wanted to. It was asking and begging to live in my home. Eventually, I caught on to a bunch of crap and would compare stories and heard the stupid excuses like it would volunteer information to me, and I would later find out that information was false, and I'd be like, why did you say that story was? I'd be told, well, I didn't want you to get upset. But did I even ask you about that question? No. So why are you volunteering information I didn't ask for, so I won't get upset lying about it. Fool. Fast forward, that's just the background. So what eventually happened was I started to catch on to various things, which I've mentioned in other videos. I figured this was a scam artist. It evidently realized I was not going to be the next target because I knew too much or who knows what. But it tried to tell me it was going to be getting back together with its current roommate. So I thought, okay. Well, during this process, I probably told it wrote some little romantic fake poem for me that was like tailor-made to some of the objections I made. Like, and I'd say, you're way too young for me, I'm too old for you. It'd be about like age is just a number and things like that was all written for me. Well, all this was done. This person pursued me, but then the smear campaign occurred when I was on the phone with this person, where it's like, I told you not to call here anymore. I could tell it had its partner there with it, because some of the things it was saying on the phone were clearly phony. And one of the things it said for the smear campaign to the partner was,
I just wanted to be his friend. TJ's the one who tried to make it into a romance. It's his fault, which
is totally fabricated. I never thought I'd see those kids again until that kid started calling, saying, I'm going to see you. I want to see you. Oh, I like you. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to turn down somebody who's that enthusiastic, but I didn't really necessarily believe it. But regardless, I was being painted as the homewrecker. I was the one who snuck around, because evidently they weren't really broken up, but even though they both told me they were, I was smeared. It was like I was the homewrecker, and then the partner was on the phone one time saying, you're crazy, you are crazy. That's original. You can do better. That's one minor example where they twist the facts around, twist the reality to make it out so that you've done something wrong, when really you were simply just living day by day and going down this path and that path. But because it became inconvenient for the person for whatever reason, they had to make up stories, twist the facts around. And another piece of this smear campaign also involved that goofy little poem. What happened was I had purchased a computer from this creature. This was during its love bombing stage. Remember, I was just like numb from what I'd been through, thinking, oh, someone's coming around and wanting to have fun, okay. And then this poem comes, and then the person that sold me the computer programmed it so as soon as I open it up, it's a laptop, that little poem would like pop up romantically on the screen, which after a while it was slowing everything down. I got rid of it. The point was, it wrote it. When it was with the partner and they were both attacking me for being this crazy homewrecker, I was talking to the creature. The creature was acting like it was all my doing. It was totally false, which, by the way, means the truth doesn't set you free in these situations, because they've rewritten it, they've altered it, and they've got the person they're with believing their side. So when you try to tell the real truth, it sounds like a lie. But when I was talking to it, I was trying to figure out, it's like, who are you performing for? Who is your partner there with you? Is that why you're saying this stuff? It's not true? And at one point, I said, so, you mean to tell me that you didn't write that poem for me? And I heard the person saying something like, he says that I wrote some kind of poem for him. And I was listening to this thinking, what? So then when it came back on, I was like, so you mean to say you didn't write that poem for me? And the person said, no, I didn't write any poem. And I thought, that's it. Click. Because this is pointless. You can't really do anything with this. Well, I had to meet this person to return one of its items of value. I knew I'd be seeing the two of them together, and I'm being smeared as a lying person about this poem. Well, it just so happens that the kid came over with a notepad with the poem written out in its own handwriting before it typed it into the computer. So I made sure when I returned the item that I also brought that notepad along for the partner and said, hey, by the way, you need to read this. And I gave it to the partner, because the partner is going to recognize its writing. I did that, which didn't do any good as far as I know, but at least it cleared my name of that foolishness. But it's really not worth it with these types of people. That's one example. Now I can explore it from a different angle. I witnessed the smear campaign in a new person that I had started to associate with, and I was shy. I was slow. I was not rushing anything. And I explained why. I said, well, I just got through with a horrifying situation, and I just think that I need to make sure that things are what they should be before jumping ahead in anything. Well, I had mentioned some of the evil, some of the abuse, and violence, and guess what? Mirroring. This person and I were out in public one night. The person, the ex of this monster, was out, and I was told,
"That's my evil ex. That's my abusive ex, the one who abused me."
And I'd hear individual stories that were meant to mirror mine when I would say, because I'd be like telling every story, like, you know why I'm not going to date anybody ever again? Well, because, for example, this is what went on, and I would tell the story, and then this creature would then try to match it, like, oh, well, I've been through that too. I had it happen, a situation where this happened. After a while, I got the feeling that this person was switching roles around, was telling me that this evil ex did these horrible things to it, when the truth was, it had done the evil things to the ex. And it was painting this ex as some kind of abusive person, and I happened to have known this ex for many years prior. It just seemed kind of fishy. It turns out that that's exactly what happened. This person was smearing the ex's name in effort to make it look like it was familiar with what I was going through. Never bothered to mention, though, how if it was really affected by it like I was, why is it so quick to rush into a new relationship that fast? Like, aren't you concerned for your own safety? Maybe I'm a murderer. Don't you want to make sure? Because these people are like leeches. You have a date or two with them, and they're like, I want to live with you. I want to be your partner. Oh, I want this. And I'm like, are you kidding? I thought you said you went through the same things I did. Well, I think you'd be a little more careful. But see, it's all fake. They're pretending. But yes, this person was smeared on many occasions. It was designed, of course, kind of as triangulation as well, because if I hear abusive stories of this other person, I may think poor thoughts about the other person, thinking, oh, that person's no good. The smear campaign can occur at the end, but it also can be built upon throughout the relationship, especially if triangulation exists where the monster doesn't want you too close to people that it's close to, and it will achieve that by saying little subtle things like,
The friends I hang out with, they don't like you. They think you're weird.
well, if you hear that and you believe it, you're likely to keep your distance from those friends. And if you're forced to be around them, well, it's like it all plays itself out for these creatures. They know what they're doing. You're not going to go to those people and say, did you really say that I was weird? Because that just wouldn't be the right thing to do. So they've got it so everybody's silent. Probably told them something like I felt the same way about them, and that's the triangulation, but it can also lead into the smear at the end, where it can say, see, I told you all that time that felt this way or felt that way. It's really sickening. They devote their time, energy, and efforts to creating a fictitious world. Now, as far as the final portion of this viewer's question, do I find in the gay community a lot of them are cluster B monsters? Well, I have to say yes. Especially when you deal with like the online dating type applications. Yes, that's like a perfect scenario for such a personality. Now, that doesn't mean that they all are cluster B monsters. It seems the visible ones, the ones I come into contact with, many times do display those characteristics. And it's sickening to see them in like one person after another, because traditionally I would have thought that after I got involved with such a creature, that when it ended, I figured, well, the chances of meeting one of those again is very slim. But guess what? That's not the case. The very next one is showing the very same characteristics. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of the gays out there are like that. I think it pretty much says that I am some kind of magnet for those types. So to me, it will look like every single one of them is, but I know better than to believe that, because whatever frequency I'm emitting is obviously pulling them my direction, so that's what I'll see. Kind of like when I worked in collections, every phone call was a collection call, which made me think, wow, every single customer of this bank is in collections. Well, no, that's not the case. It was only 5% of the entire population, but I worked in that department that the calls were funneled to for collections. So it's easy to think that everybody's delinquent. Like when I'd be in public and I'd see somebody pull out one of our credit cards to pay for their groceries, I'd think, that's going to be declined. They're past due. And they weren't, of course. It's very common with these types, especially with these men, which I've noticed several where they're just dishonest, which some of it may stem from insecurities. It's just very common, especially if you're like in nightclub bar situations or online applications. And even if you find some like kind of church type thing, sometimes that's a disguise. I've heard of whores that have sex with like 10 people in a week will try different techniques, such as they'll go on to Craigslist and they'll post an ad under the romance section as a fake disguise, when really they're just wanting another person in their bed. People are evil everywhere, so you have to be careful. So, sociopath survivor, hopefully I've shed some light on the subjects you've requested to be covered. Until next time, have a great evening.
Oh, I am the narcopath, and I missed you.
Oh my God. I've been passed out for a few days on my pain meds, and I decided to try to catch up on the latest Pizzagate, the scandal, so I can find out when the coast is clear for me and my kill room adventures. And I was looking through YouTube, and I found the most disgusting creature I've ever seen. His name is David Seaman, and he is full of cum. He is disgusting. He's got greasy hair. He is an attention whore. He wrote a book trying to sell himself, and he tells people in interviews that he would protest gravity if he thought it might give him a buzz. I tried to watch one of his videos, and quite frankly, I vomited within the first 5 minutes. He's promoting these Bitcoin crap stuff, and he is just disgusting. He's a Zionist Jew, pretending like he doesn't even know what that is. Oh, if you see him, delete him. He is retarded. I even saw him with a joint. He was trying to coax his viewers to multiply, telling them that if 1,000 people came online on his live stream crap cum fest, and he would smoke it in front of us like that's something we want to see. Plus, he's always pretending to be a victim. He's always complaining about how all these people are out to get him. He only chooses to focus on Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, and James Alefantis. He neglects to talk about the Zionists in charge of all them. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to kiss him in the vagina. You know, I'm an expert at everything I do. Well, the Hoover's no exception. Because do you recall during what you all called the love bombing stage, when I paid attention to any and everything you needed? Well, I kept a good record of all that stuff. Once you finally saw me for the monster I really am, and you fled, well, I knew my teats and my Virginia could get you back anytime. It just took a little coaxing. In case it wasn't working the way I wanted, I still had the whole list of all your little things you found to be sweet and romantic, and I would call upon one or two of them in my message to you, saying, "Oh, I know it's been so long, but I'd love to see you." And I threw in some little sweet nothing about something I knew that meant something to you, which still to this day I have no clue what it could mean to you, but that didn't matter. You got me what I wanted. It must have melted your heart, because what happened? You said, "Oh, I know it's been so long, but I'd love to see you." And I threw in some little sweet nothing about something I knew that meant something to you, which still to this day I have no clue what it could mean to you, but that didn't matter. You got me what I wanted. It must have melted your heart, because what happened? You were inviting me over immediately. I'm successful. If you want to be successful, maybe you should take lessons from me. I know all of your fears, and I know all of your likes and desires and your passions. Too bad I don't have any, but I live vicariously through you. And I attempt to destroy your life bit by bit with all the knowledge I have. Ta-ta.